Out on the open range, life was rough, the days were long, and meals were simple, but every bite mattered. Cowboys didn't dine in luxury. They ate what they could carry, hunt, or cook over a fire. From sizzling biscuits to smoky stews, these foods fueled the men who drove cattle across endless plains. Saddle up and grab a tin plate. Here are 30 foods cowboys actually ate on the trail. Number 1. Sourdough biscuits. No cowboy breakfast was complete without sourdough biscuits sizzling in a cast iron skillet. The starter, often called OL Reliable, was guarded like gold, a living mix of flour and wild yeast that could last for years. Cooked over campfire coals, these biscuits rose fluffy inside and crisp outside, perfect for soaking up gravy or molasses. When supplies ran low, sourdough kept bellies full and spirits high out on the dusty, endless trail. Number 2. Salt pork. Salt pork was a cowboy's lifeline, fatty slabs of cured meat that could survive weeks on the trail without spoiling. It was salty, greasy, and far from gourmet, but it packed the calories needed for long days in the saddle. Chuckwagon cooks fried it crisp for breakfast or diced it into beans and stews for flavor. Sure, it was tough on the arteries, but out on the range, salt pork meant strength and survival. Number 3. Beans and bacon. If the Old West had a signature dish, it was beans and bacon. Every chuckwagon carried sacks of dried beans and a slab of bacon, because they lasted for months and filled hungry stomachs. The cooks simmered them slow over the fire, letting the smoky bacon flavor seep into every bite. Simple, hearty, and packed with protein, this was the meal that fueled cattle drives and campfire tales alike. A true taste of cowboy endurance. Number 4. Coffee and chicory. Cowboys didn't start a day without coffee, strong, black, and often laced with chicory when real beans ran low. Brewed in a dented pot right over the coals, it was thick enough to float a horseshoe. Or so they joked. Some poured it over tin cups full of grit. Others sweetened it with molasses if they were lucky. It wasn't fancy, but it was fuel. Hot, bitter courage for another long day on the trail. Number 5. Hardtack. Hardtack was the cowboy's version of trail bread, a rock-hard cracker made from just flour, water, and salt. It could last for months, sometimes years, without spoiling. Most men had to soak it in coffee or stew just to chew it. Despite its jaw-breaking reputation, hardtack was dependable and portable, perfect for riders miles from any town. It wasn't delicious, but when supplies ran thin, hardtack kept cowboys from going to bed hungry. Number 6. Son of a gun stew. This legendary cowboy stew was a rare treat, usually made when a cow was butchered on the trail. Every usable part of the animal went into the pot: heart, liver, tripe, and a few vegetables, if any could be found. Slow cooked in a Dutch oven, it turned tough cuts into tender bites. Rich, hearty, and full of flavor, son of a gun stew was proof that a good trail cook could turn scraps into pure gold. Number 7. Sour coffee gravy. When supplies ran short, cowboys got creative, even turning leftover coffee into gravy. The cook would whisk together bacon grease, flour, and a splash of yesterday's coffee, thickening it into a smoky, bitter sauce. Poured over biscuits or fried salt pork, it added rich flavor when ingredients were scarce. It might sound strange today, but on the trail, sour coffee gravy was cowboy comfort food, proof that nothing ever went to waste. Number 8. Dried apples and peaches. Fresh fruit was rare on the open range, so dried apples and peaches were prized treasures. Cowboys soaked them overnight in water or whiskey, then stewed them with sugar or molasses into a sweet, sticky dessert. The scent alone could lift spirits after weeks of beans and bacon. Lightweight and long-lasting, dried fruit added a taste of home, a reminder that even the toughest cowhands still craved something soft and sweet after supper. Number 9. Chuckwagon stew. Chuckwagon stew was the heart of trail cooking, a one-pot wonder that changed with whatever the cook had on hand. Usually a mix of beef scraps, potatoes, onions, and beans, it simmered all afternoon while the herd moved. By sundown, it was thick, smoky, and full of flavor. No two pots ever tasted the same, but that was part of the charm. For hungry riders, chuckwagon stew meant warmth, comfort, and a taste of teamwork. Number 10. Flapjacks. Flapjacks, the Cowboys' hot breakfast favorite, were quick, filling, and easy to make over a campfire. Flour, water, baking soda, and a little bacon grease made the batter, cooked in a cast iron skillet until golden and smoky. If the cook had molasses, syrup, or jam, that was a lucky day. Stacked high on tin plates, flapjacks gave riders the fuel they needed to face another long stretch of trail beneath the blazing sun. Number 11. Jerky. Jerky was the Cowboys' ultimate trail snack. Lean strips of beef, buffalo, or venison salted and dried until tough as leather. It didn't spoil, didn't need cooking, and could be chewed on while riding for miles. Some added pepper or smoke for extra flavor. Others just relied on salt and sun. It wasn't tender, but it was dependable protein-packed fuel that kept a cowboy going when there wasn't a proper meal in sight. Number 12. Fried salt pork and gravy. When the Chuckwagon ran low on supplies, fried salt pork and gravy was the meal that kept cowboys satisfied. The cook sliced the pork thin, fried it crisp, then used the leftover grease to make a rich, peppery gravy. Poured over biscuits or potatoes, it turned simple ingredients into something hearty and comforting. Greasy? Absolutely. But after a day in the saddle, no cowboy ever complained about a plate full of salt pork and gravy. Number 13. Flapjacks with molasses. Similar to flapjacks, but a bit heartier, slapjacks were thick campfire pancakes, often made with coarse flour or cornmeal. Cowboys mixed them right in the skillet, using whatever they had, water, grease, maybe a pinch of sugar if luck allowed. Once browned and crisp-edged, they were drizzled with molasses or sorghum syrup. Sticky, smoky, and sweet, slapjacks were a rare breakfast luxury that made the long ride ahead just a little easier to face. Number 14. Trail beans. Trail beans were the backbone of cowboy cooking, simple, slow-cooked, and endlessly reliable. The cook tossed dried beans into the pot at dawn with salt pork, onions, and a pinch of chili or molasses if available. By nightfall, they were soft, smoky, and hearty enough to fill any empty stomach. Served with biscuits or straight from a tin bowl, trail beans were comfort food on the move, humble, hot, and worth the wait. Number 15. Dried beef and crackers. When fires couldn't be lit or time was short, cowboys turned to dried beef and crackers, a no-cook meal they could eat in the saddle. The beef, salty and leathery, was sliced thin and paired with hardtack or soda crackers for crunch. Sometimes they'd dip it in creek water or coffee to soften it up. It wasn't fancy or filling, but it kept hunger at bay. The ultimate meal for men always on the move. Number 16. Fried potatoes and onions. A cowboy classic, fried potatoes and onions were a chuckwagon staple when supplies allowed. Sliced spuds and onions sizzled together in a cast iron skillet with bacon grease until golden, crisp, and smoky. The smell alone could draw every hand to the fire. Sometimes beans or bits of meat were added for extra heartiness. Simple, cheap, and full of flavor, this dish turned humble ingredients into pure comfort, the kind of meal that made camp feel like home. Number 17. Corn Dodgers. Corn Dodgers were the Cowboys' version of cornbread on the go, small, dense cakes made from cornmeal, salt, and water, fried or baked right on a hot skillet. They were tough enough to pack in a saddlebag and filling enough to last all day. Some cooks added bacon grease or molasses for flavor. Dry? Maybe. Durable? Absolutely. Corn Dodgers were trail fuel, born from necessity and baked with the grit of the men who ate them. Number 18. Sowbelly and beans. Sowbelly, the cowboy term for fatty salt pork, was a chuckwagon staple that added flavor to almost everything, especially beans. Slow cooked together in an iron pot, the fat rendered down into a rich, smoky broth that coated every spoonful. It wasn't fancy fare, but it stuck to your ribs and kept men fueled for long days driving cattle. Out on the plains, a pot of sowbelly and beans meant warmth, comfort, and survival. Number 19. Vinegar pie. When fresh fruit was nowhere to be found, chuckwagon cooks got clever, and vinegar pie was born. Using flour, sugar, water, and a splash of vinegar, they created a tart, custard-like filling that mimicked lemon pie. Baked in a simple crust, it offered a rare taste of sweetness on the dusty trail. It might sound strange, but to cowboys craving dessert under a starlit sky, vinegar pie was proof that ingenuity could taste downright good. Number 20. Fried apples. Fried apples were a cowboy's touch of home, simple, sweet, and easy to make on the trail. Dried apple slices were rehydrated in a bit of water, then fried in bacon grease or butter with sugar and a sprinkle of cinnamon if it was on hand. The result was tender, caramelized fruit with a smoky edge. Eaten warm from the skillet or spooned over biscuits, fried apples turned a rough night on the prairie into comfort. Number 21. Prairie hen stew. When game was scarce, cowboys turned to whatever the land offered, often prairie hen or grouse. The bird was dressed, browned in bacon grease, and simmered with potatoes, onions, and whatever vegetables the cook could spare. Tough meat became tender after hours over the coals, creating a hearty stew rich in flavor. Prairie hen stew wasn't an everyday meal, but when a cowboy got lucky with his aim, it tasted like pure frontier luxury. Number 22. Campfire cornbread. Cornbread was a cowboy favorite, baked right in a cast-iron skillet set over glowing coals. Made from cornmeal, salt, water, and a dash of bacon grease, it came out crisp on the edges and tender in the middle. Sometimes cooks sweetened it with molasses or added chopped jalapenos for heat. It was perfect for soaking up bean juice or gravy. And when eaten hot from the pan, campfire cornbread tasted like home under the open sky. Number 23. Campfire coffee cake. For cowboys with a sweet tooth, campfire coffee cake was a rare but welcome treat. Made from flour, sugar, eggs, and a splash of strong coffee, it was baked in a Dutch oven buried in coals. Sometimes, cooks sprinkled it with cinnamon or drizzled molasses on top for extra flavor. The aroma alone could lift a cowboy's spirits after a long ride. Warm, crumbly, and slightly smoky, this humble cake brought a touch of home to the open range. Number 24. Dried apple pie. When fresh fruit was an option, dried apples came to the rescue. Cowboys soaked the slices overnight, then stewed them with sugar, cinnamon, and a bit of lard before sealing them in a rough pie crust. Baked in a Dutch oven over campfire coals, dried apple pie filled the air with sweet, smoky aroma. It wasn't fancy, but after weeks of beans and biscuits, a slice of that warm, chewy pie felt like a celebration on the trail. Number 25. Slumgullion stew. Slumgullion was a cowboy catch-all, a stew made from whatever scraps were left at the end of the week. Bits of beef, beans, potatoes, onions, and even bacon grease all went into the pot, simmering until thick and hearty. No two batches were ever the same, but every spoonful told a story of resourcefulness. It might not have looked pretty, but on the range, slumgullion was proof that waste wasn't an option, and flavor could come from anything. Number 26. Liver and onions. Liver and onions was a rare but prized treat on the trail. When a fresh cow was butchered, the liver was sliced thin, fried in bacon grease, and topped with caramelized onions. Strong in flavor and packed with nutrients, it gave cowboys a boost of energy for long rides. Not everyone loved it, but those who did cherished it. Served hot from the skillet with a side of biscuits or potatoes, liver and onions was frontier comfort at its finest. Number 27. Coffee and sugar syrup. Cowboys loved their coffee, strong, black, and often boiled until it could wake the dead. But when sugar was scarce, the cook might stretch what little they had by melting it into a thick syrup. A drizzle of this sweet mix in the morning coffee turned bitter brew into a small luxury. Some even poured it over biscuits for dessert. Coffee and sugar syrup wasn't just a drink, it was comfort in a tin cup. Number 28. Butter beans. Butter beans were a warm, comforting dish that broke up the monotony of beans and bacon. When supplies allowed, chuckwagon cooks soaked the large white beans overnight, then simmered them slow with salt pork, onions, and a touch of molasses. The result was creamy, smoky, and rich, a welcome change from trail rations. Cowboys would heap them onto tin plates beside biscuits or meat. Simple, hearty, and filling, butter beans were proof that patience paid off. Number 29. Fried salt pork sandwich. When cowboys needed a quick bite before saddling up, a fried salt pork sandwich hit the spot. Thin slices of salty pork were crisped in a skillet, then tucked between slabs of biscuit or sourdough bread. Grease soaked into the bread, creating a rich, savory meal that was easy to eat on the go. Sometimes a slice of onion or dab of molasses was added for flavor. It was messy, hearty, and pure cowboy fuel. Number 30. Rustler's Hash. Rustler's Hash was the Cowboys' answer to leftovers, a hearty skillet meal that made sure nothing went to waste. Chopped beef, potatoes, onions, and bits of bacon were fried together in bacon grease until crispy and golden. It was smoky, salty, and full of flavor, the perfect way to start or end a long day on the range. Easy to make and even easier to love, Rustler's Hash proved that Cowboys knew how to cook with grit and heart.